This is Robert Kraft, and I'm your host on SNN.Network. And joining me right now is Bill Stilley. He is the CEO of ADIL Pharmaceuticals. It's a publicly traded company. The symbol is ADIL on NASDAQ. Bill, thank you for joining me today. How are you doing?
Yeah, Robert, thank you for having me. A pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you. So I really would like to dig right in. We'll get to some background and stuff on the company in a little bit, but the company's put out a good amount of news in the last week or two here. So the company announced on Wednesday, June 10th, that it has received an order for 1,000 COVID antibody test kits. And this is following the news announced on June 8th, where the company has entered into a distribution agreement for COVID antibody tests with BioLab Sciences. So can you explain a little bit about the nature of the agreement and also the first order of the antibody tests?
Yeah, sure. First of all, I want to say this is not a major line of business for us. We are currently running the landmark ONWARD trial, which is a phase 3 clinical trial for the development of a drug for alcohol use disorder. And by the way, it's in genetically targeted patients. And we're running that in Scandinavia and Eastern Europe, where it appears, based on publicly available databases, that there's a higher prevalence of the people with our genetics. So we're running a clinical trial over there. And this really, the COVID antibody test came about because we were looking at ways to, A, run the trial and get it effectively done, and B, ensure the safety of the patients that are involved in the trial. And it came about that the antibody test was available through some connections. I was able to arrange to provide the antibody test for the participants in the trial. And because we were placing, a couple thousand unit order on our own, that basically put us into the distributor category. And so when we entered the agreement, we were able to also get the ability to put exclusive accounts onto it as far as sales. And then after doing that, we are not, I want to make it clear, we are not putting a huge effort in ADIL, and I've brought in just a couple people on the side to help do some sales. And but it is an opportunity for the company to bring in some extra cash, and also to help distribute these tests, which could be very valuable to society. So that's the reason. That's how we got involved, and that's what's going on today. And and we've had a small number of orders so far, and it's potentially ramping up a little bit.
So I also have to ask, and you alluded to this a little bit already in your answer, but can you explain a little bit further the story behind how the company then came to have access to these antibody test kits?
Well, like I said, so we are placing a few thousand unit order for our own use in the clinical trials. And, by the way, we think that's important for the trials. A, it helps the doctors potentially understand, the exposure level of their patients coming in, and to make whatever decisions that might involve. Helps the countries in being able to track, because most of this data will then be reported up, track, the number of incidences of COVID that they've had. But also, we've spaced them out to test each patient a couple of times or 3 times through the trial. And with that, they now have an incentive to come back. And a big problem in these clinical trials is retention rates. And so what that means is patients will come for a bit, and then they drop out before the end of the trial, and you don't hear from them again. And so offering that is the last thing. Hey, we'll check to make sure, that you're still, antibody free, which means that you've had the antibodies, which means you've been exposed to COVID. That's something that provides curiosity, and so the patients are more likely to come back. And it only takes a few coming back that might not have otherwise to be beneficial to the company. And so, as I said, because that's a few thousand test order itself, when we entered the agreement, we also developed put into the agreement the ability to have exclusive accounts, and have worked to start developing some of those accounts, and see if we can get orders that may be significant.
I mean, at the end of the day, I think a lot of people would agree here that this isn't going away anytime soon. So there might, and also it could be a way in which to subsidize some of the clinical trial development. I mean, has that been something that's been a thought process with management at ADIL?
Well, I mean, absolutely. As a biotech company, anytime you can find another source of cash, that is a good thing. And, you know, at this point, we haven't determined whether that's going to be a significant, you know, material to us amount of cash. It has that potential, but, you know, we're still developing that.
Fair enough. So taking a step back here, you know, prior to COVID-19, as you guys said, the company was focused on developing treatments for addictions. Can you describe the company's clinical development program and where you're actually at in the clinic?
Yes. So we have a drug called we codename AD04. It's in our landmark ONWARD trial, which, as I mentioned earlier, is being run in Scandinavia and Eastern Europe. The drug is in phase 3, which is the last step before you go to an approval. And we would expect, so what we're testing for is to see if we can reduce drinking, and in particular, reduce harmful or what's called heavy drinking. And the data are that almost all damage due to alcohol is due to what they call a heavy drinking day. And a heavy drinking day is defined as 5 or more drinks in a day for a man, 4 or more drinks in a day for a woman. And the data, as I said, the data are that this is what causes almost all the damage. And you think about it, let's say a man, 1, 2, 3, 4 drinks. Yes, they shouldn't get behind the wheel, but for the most part, it's not going to be causing big problems in their life. It's once you get to that threshold when things start to go bad. And of course, 20 drinks is worse than 6 drinks, but that's where it starts to go bad. Both the FDA and EMA have agreed that a heavy drinking day endpoint is what could serve for the basis of approval. And I think if we get an approval based on that, that it would be widely accepted in the market as really meaningful to the patients. You know, let them control the alcohol rather than the alcohol control them.
So basically, it sounds like you guys are trying to create like a nicotine patch or a nicotine lozenge for alcoholism. I mean, is that kind of where you're trying to go with this trial?
Actually, it is somewhat similar. So based on the data we have to date, it appears our drug reduces craving for alcohol. And as I said, that we believe can help people reduce their heavy drinking, you know, which is the harmful drinking. It could potentially help them, you know, eliminate their drinking, you know, if the data support that and if that's what they and their doctor thinks is best for them. And so what we have currently is a twice a day formulation, meaning that you take a tablet twice a day, once in the morning, once in the evening. We believe we'll be able to get it to an extended release once a day, you know, as time goes on. But currently you would do that. And our belief is that you would take it as you have the problem, and then you and your doctor determine whether, you know, you get control and rotate off, and maybe in the future, if it comes back again, you rotate back on, or if it's something that you stay on, you know, possibly for a lifetime. I think it would be very similar to antidepressants as far as use in the market. Some people go on for, you know, 12, 18 months, and then they stop, and then they start again in the future if they decide it's necessary. And then some people say, this is just really working for me, and they stay on it.
So then how would you say is the company's lead drug candidate, ONWARD, unique and different compared to your peers?
So, I mean, reduction of craving is really one of the big things. Also, the dosing, simple oral dosing, and then finally, the side effects. So current drugs on the market, you know, the market leader is an injection. It's an 18-gauge needle, very painful. You have to go in every 30 days and get that. And then it has some side effects, particularly, you know, some GI effects, gastrointestinal effects. And our drug, you know, based on the data, it does not have practically any side effects, very limited, we'll say, relative to the placebo in our trials. And I would refer you to the SEC filings for details on that. And so the safety, the fact that it's orally dosed, and that it controls the drinking rather than just stopping the high, or the drug that's been on the longest is one, if you take it and then you drink, you get violently ill. And so what happens with that drug is most people that want to drink just don't take it. And so this is a drug that really meets the needs of the patients, which helps them reduce the harm of alcohol in their life without all the problems of the current medications.
Got it. So then what's your background? I mean, how'd you come into all this?
Well, so first of all, you know, I started out after undergraduate going into the Marine Corps, then business school, and then entrepreneurship. And about 20 years ago, got into life science business and been involved in most of the facets of drug development. And so getting close to 10 years ago, we founded ADIL Pharmaceuticals with the goal and mission of helping people with addictions. And so we are driving, to go after medicinal and scientifically based approaches to help those people with alcohol use disorder, being the largest of them all, as our initial focus.
So from there, from what you can tell us, what should investors look for moving forward?
Well, first, the trial that we're running has been delayed a little bit by COVID. We raised a little money last week, which gives us the funds that we believe should take us well through the trial, and we are now going to execute. The world is starting to open. The countries are starting to open. We just announced that it was actually kind of unexpected that Poland opened up and immediately went to approve the initiation of our trial in Poland. We have other countries we expect to be opening soon, driving that forward. We also have announced that we have gotten patents around the drug for the use in opioid use disorder. So we believe, based on the mechanism, the way this drug works, that it might be useful in some other addictions. We're going after opioids first, could potentially work in gambling, maybe even a few others. And so we'll be driving forward with that. And then I think, with a drug of this importance, that partnerships could make sense. So we're absolutely exploring that also.
So Bill, with that, where can my audience go and find everything they need to know about ADIL Pharmaceuticals?
Well, as with most companies, the best way to find information is to go to their website. Our website is www.adilpharma.com. That's ADIAL pharma.com.
Thank you so much for joining me today. I really do appreciate it. I wish you guys the best of luck. Stay safe, and I look forward to our next update.
Yeah, Robert, thank you so much for having me on, and take care.
Thank you.